Brett Makar in college was the best lockdown defender from X in the nation. His superior size and ability to play angles at X makes him nearly impossible to beat. An underrated aspect of his game is how he wings out his arm in his approach so his stick is always out in front when he's guarding someone. But what I want to talk about is how Makar surprised me in his jump to the pros. When I first saw the roster come out with the Atlas, I was extremely surprised to see Makar up at LSM. His larger size and lack of experience of the position in college made me skeptical. On top of all of that, Kobe Smith was benched, who was one of their go-to LSMs last year. So I was more than surprised when I turned on the first game in week 1 versus the Redwoods and see him tally 4 ground balls, and then next week 5 ground balls, and the next week 5 more. Even more, it wasn't like he was getting free grounders off the wing from Baptiste. It felt like all of his ground balls were through heavy traffic and he magically came out with it. I do think he's had a little trouble adjusting to getting dodged on from up top. He now has middies dodging on him at full speed from a position he's not comfortable in. To add to that, his calling card of size and strength is less valuable and you can't make heavy contact at high speeds. Nevertheless, I think Makar has had an incredible jump to the pros, and I want to show some clips that showcase it. The first clip is an extremely smooth ground ball through heavy traffic. Makar comes from the outside of his scrum and is able to get it off the ground in one smooth motion. What I think is important here to watch is how he keeps his stick in a low position after the ground ball. By cradling in this low position, he's able to navigate traffic without having to bring his stick up into a vulnerable place. Lastly, notice how once he receives pressure, he rolls away from it, all the while having the balance to stay in bounds. I talk a lot about how the best players in the world have an amazing ability to win a matchup, even when they put themselves in a disadvantaged position. Whether that's a bad approach angle, or in this case losing balance, they find a way to force a bad shot and stick with the play. What I like about this clip is how Makar is extremely behind his man once he receives the ball, but instead of gunning it to catch up, he slowly approaches because he's anticipating the rollback. What's impressive though is how he loses his balance in the rollback, but almost immediately recovers and stays back in the play. I want to showcase another quick ground ball. Makar comes in to help as Sisselberger pushes towards the net. Makar is able to get a nice trail chick off, but what I like is how off the bounce is able to choke up on his stick and catch the ball right next to his body. Choking up on certain ground balls is crucial, especially if you're in traffic or if the ball is right under your feet. In this coverage from up top, Makar does a couple of good things, but I want to highlight one of his weaknesses also. He does a great job at first getting below the pick and waiting for his man to choose a side. His man isn't a shooting threat from distance, so he doesn't need to maintain contact the entire time, so where he is perfect. But after getting back on his man and maneuvering the pick, he faces a little contact from the off-ball man, forcing him to switch. Switching on picks isn't always bad, but switching to a short stick D midi, if you don't have to, isn't the best. Along with that, Matt Moore is the better offensive player in this two-man game, so I would have liked to see Makar try to stick with his man. In this play, the ball hits the turf on an errant shot and Makar makes a good pickup, but what's important is how he takes the contact right after it and comes through. Due to his huge size, it doesn't matter how hard someone comes in for a hit, it barely affects him. On top of all of that, once he gets into open space, he puts his stick out and turns on the jets. This combination of having size and speed is what makes him deadly. Despite all these strengths, like I said earlier in the video, he's still having trouble with coverages from up top and especially with picks from up top. This game winner was due to miscommunication on a pick with Makar's man. It's easier to say this after the fact, but I would like to see him make contact before the pick or get under it, or maybe just a little more communication and a switch. I still think Makar has had an incredible jump to LSM, and even though the past 2 games he's been moved down to close defense, which I think is the right move, I think his skills off the ground are going to continue to shine in the PLL.